you.
Well, we had quite a reception here in Helsinki. We've never been here before. The first purpose was the presentation of our book we did together on the life of Jesus of Nazareth, which was quite successful at the book fair. And now we have the special screening. And I've been invited to do a couple of questions with Paul, question and answer, on the subject of Robocop. And the first thing that comes to mind is, Paul, you usually don't look back your own films. When was the last time that you saw Robocop?
That was in fact about 3 months ago, because there was a big screening in Los Angeles where all the cast and the crew of the movie, Peter Weller, Nancy Allen and many of the actors, and the people that did the special effects, the writers, both writers, Ed Newmeyer, Michael Miner, were all there. So it was a reunion which was extremely successful. Now, of course, these people made the movie, so they liked it clearly. So, but that was the last time. So it's pretty recent that I saw it. Yes.
And the last time before that?
That's probably years ago.
Yes, because you don't want to see your own work. Why is that?
No, I like to see showgirls.
Yeah. It's going to be a special presentation one day in Helsinki.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay, so I know as your biographer that Robocop is a very important film in your career. It was the first film that you made in the United States, right?
Yes.
And at first, when they sent you the script, you weren't that impressed.
Oh, yeah, worse than that. I just was disgusted more. I didn't like it at all. I was not so really. Yeah, when I was a child of 7, 8, I looked at a lot of comic books that were about science fiction, of course, that were, let's say, reprints of American comic books. But then basically at that age that basically Robocop was sent to me, I felt that I had broken with that, you know. And when I read on the script Robocop, the future of law enforcement, I thought it was completely ridiculous. And I read 15 pages and then I threw it aside. A lot of the language I didn't understand, and I probably felt that I needed a dictionary to... my English was really still not perfect, I must say, but it was certainly really bad at that time, and I rejected it. I called the studio, which was Orion. It doesn't exist anymore, it's bankrupt and it's taken over by MGM. So Robocop is now owned by MGM. And I told them that I wouldn't do it, and that it was not my cup of tea, and that I didn't like it in the first place. So then I went. I was at that time. I was in the Côte d'Azur, in the south of France, on a holiday with my daughters and my wife. And in the meantime, I had left the script on the beach, and then I came back, and then my wife had read it, and then she said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "No, I just cancelled it." And then she said, "Well, you're wrong. You can do something with this movie, in my opinion, and you are basically, I force you nearly to read it again." Or, well, I read it only for a third, so basically you have to read it and read it slowly, and then I assure you that you might change your mind.
What did she see in the script?
She thought that I could do it.
Yeah. Okay.
She thought that I would be able to do something that at that time seemed far away from the normal way I was making movies. I was making movies in Holland that were all kind of what you call normal, no science fiction. They were partially historical, but they were, let's say, about people. Not about, let's say, superheroes or science fiction or monsters or all that stuff. I was far, far away from that. And she felt that I could master this. I mean, she's very a good judger of people.
She's your guide and philosopher, Martin.
Yeah, she's also a psychologist. So basically, she...
It seems that a lot of film directors have somewhere in this field as their wife.
Yeah, it's true. And anyhow, she convinced me. Yes. And I read the script and I agreed. It happened next day or 2 days later. I called the company and said, is the job still available? And they said, yes, okay, come over. And this is just applause for Martina, I would say.
Yes.
But she did that several times in my life. She was also the one that convinced me to work with Arnold Schwarzenegger on Total Recall.
So for a European director coming to America, it's difficult to make a drama on our actual times, right? Because you don't know the culture of it.
Right.
Science fiction gives you a certain amount of freedom. And that's what happened with Robocop. There was a set in the future, and you could add your own European taste to it. Could you tell us something about it?
Sure. No, as I said, my English was not that good. I didn't know anything about American culture, and I think in retrospect, that's an analysis in retrospect, I think I was protected from mistakes. First of all, by the fact that it was science fiction, and of course, with science fiction, other things are possible than basically what Americans would normally know and appreciate, you know. So I had much more freedom, like you said, in science fiction than in something that would have happened at that time in Chicago or New York. I wouldn't know how to do that, and I wouldn't have the culture to do that, the backgrounds, you know. And science fiction, people wouldn't notice, and basically has been, let's say, a grace, but it also has been, of course, done some damage, because in the United States I have had a lot of trouble to separate myself from science fiction. And the one time that I thought that I did, which was Basic Instinct, then I opened the door to another way of filmmaking, into more, let's say, about people. And then I closed that door again with Showgirls. So then I was brought back to science fiction, and I stayed in science fiction till I came back to Europe a couple of years ago. I mean, on a trip, and made this Second World War movie, Black Book. So it is very difficult when you are 47 or 48. That was I was at that age when I went to the United States, to become really American. For me, it was nearly impossible. I've always been let's say, what they call an alien in an alien country, to cite Heinlein effect, something. And it has been difficult, really, for me to do movies that would be really American, you know. The science fiction is, of course, science fiction is not invented in the United States. It also comes from England and other countries. I have been able to do that pretty well. But to make a normal American movie about people, and not a thriller, so like Basic Instinct, but something about people, I have never succeeded in doing that.
So, actually it wasn't a film with a big budget, was it, Robocop?
No, it was $30 million.
Yes, most of the money went to the suit of Robo.
Well, it was interesting because I thought when I started to work on the script, I had all these visions of Blade Runner. You know, Blade Runner has a wonderful production design. The movie, I feel, is a bit slow, but the production design is fantastic. I'm a fan of Ridley Scott, huh? But so I had the dreams when I was starting Robocop that I would change the world to a Blade Runner production design, you know, that would be very futuristic and this and that and so. And so I started to basically tell the producer, John Davidson, a great guy, what I had in mind for the production design. And then he said to me, Paul, you can choose, or you get a wonderful production design, or you get the suits of Robocop. But we cannot give you both, but there's no money for that. And so I chose the costume, the harness, say.
Yeah.
So that's how it went. It was low budget, and a lot of things that I thought that I could do, I could not do, and perhaps that was for the best, because I feel that it's probably the most one of the times that I was utmost creative. You know, I was in a new world. I didn't know anything. I didn't know my crew. I mean, all new people, with the exception of my VP, Joost Pecano, who had done Soldier of Orange with me. And for the rest, I didn't know the actors. I didn't know anything. So then, I think if you, like, nearly in a philosophical way, make this step in the unknown, isn't it, in an existential way, then, and you don't know basically where you're going, then you are as creative as possible, I believe, you know, and at least that happened to me. I felt, let's say, continuously, completely inspired by making this movie, and that never, I mean, other movies have that a little bit, but this was absolutely fantastic, you know, and I had, let's say, it was difficult, and I was desperate sometimes, and I felt that I didn't know exactly how to do it. I had need a lot of help from the special effect people to all the slow motion stuff and all, but ultimately I think we were both, Joost Pecano came to the DP, cameraman came to the USA also for the first time, and Joost and I were extremely inspired, and we improvised, and so many scenes are basically choreographed on the set, and basically we had an idea, we did it and stuff. And I think that vitality, that kind of imagination, that kind of improvisation is still visible in the movie even after so many years, I feel. But of course you should judge.
Okay, so now listen, the main character is Agent Alex Murphy, and he gets shoot to pieces, and then he becomes half man, half machine, right?
But all go.
But all go, right?
It says on the poster.
It says on the poster, it's a good slogan. But I spoke to Peter Weller and a lot of guys who worked on the production, and it appeared that Peter Weller is what you call a method actor. Now, one of the anecdotes I put in the book is that he was sitting in his chair wearing his heavy suit, and he wanted to rehearse something, and he said, "Okay, Peter, walk from A to B in the room," but he wouldn't move. And then someone came to you and whispered in your ear, "Paul, you have to call him Robo. He's a method actor." Is it true?
I'm not sure if it's exactly true, but yes. It's certainly true that he was a method actor, and that if he said it to me or somebody else said it to me, the anecdote that I should call him Robo is true. And I thought it might be absolutely like you said it, I don't remember that, but I know that I was advised by him or others to call him Robo, and I refused. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And then when I started to call him Peter after a couple of days, basically, then he accepted it, yes.
Now, you were shooting it, the film, and you have an end result. Were you expected by the success of the film? Did you predict it yourself? Did you have a good feeling, or were you very nervous when it premiered?
No, I don't think I was. I felt that was okay or whatever. I felt that it was as good as possible, and no, I was not really nervous, but I was, of course, let's say, unsure. You know, I didn't know my audience really. I mean, I know a Dutch audience, and that's not so perhaps so different from a Finnish audience. But Americans are really different, and so I didn't know that. But there was a screening in New York, and that was the first time I saw the movie with an audience. And it was a kind of, let's say, in a theater. No, it was a theater with a lot of ethnicity in the audience, you know, different colors, say. And from the street, nearly. I think it was not invited people. It was just people they brought in, perhaps to see how the movie would work. And I mean, that's probably the most powerful moment in my life as a reaction from an audience, when they were reacting very verbally, and Americans are much more, let's say, vocal than mostly European audiences. But the best moment, and what was absolutely fantastic, I thought, was at the very end, when basically Robocop has won, isn't it? And the bad guy, Ronnie Cox, falls out of the window, and then the old man, who is the head of the company, of
the mastermind,
COP, then asks him "What's your name, son?" And the answer of Robocop is at that time, script-wise, Murphy. Because now the transition from Robocop to Murphy has happened. He has regained his humanity, isn't it? He has in some way regained Murphy. Now before he could say Murphy, the whole audience said, "Murphy!" And that was so sensational that they had been going so much through this slow transformation from somebody that lost his past, lost his humanity, to somebody that has regained it, that they felt what the line was. And I mean, it's the most amazing experience in my life as to a reaction of an audience, you know. It was absolutely fantastic, I think, and I remember that I was like blown away, but that they had gone so much with the movie that I thought at least that people liked it, yeah.
Obviously it's a masterpiece, a work of art, but then again in Finland, we've heard, only today, they took out like 9 minutes, it was like a decoupage, because the censor found it too violent. Did you hear about this?
No, and basically I think they should have asked my permission, in fact.
So, before we go over to yelling Murphy at the end of the screening, we're here to also, I told you, to do a little promotion for our book on Jesus. Now, actually, in this movie, Robocop, there are several moments in the film that you could see what Paul calls the Americanization of Jesus. And if you should look at the cover of the Jesus book in the Netherlands, you can also see that Jesus wipes out the temple where the corrupt people are. And I'd always like to call Jesus at that moment Robo-Jesus. Paul, can you tell me something about the symbolism you put in the film?
Yeah, well, I put it in, but basically I put it in a playful way. It was not in any way that I thought that this would be a metaphor for Jesus or whatever, you know. There were moments that Old Testament and New Testament basically were in my mind. Not only, well, for example, the Old Testament, or what you would call the lost paradise, isn't it? That was the scene where Murphy, will see the scene where Murphy, or Robocop by then, goes back to his house where he lived and starts for the first time to remember elements of his former life with his wife and son. That was for me, let's say, lost paradise, really. That was regaining paradise. And so that's not a Jesus metaphor, but it is certainly a religious metaphor. And more so, there were other scenes, and notably there is a scene at the end where there's a confrontation, the big confrontation between Robocop and the bad guy, the two bad guys, Ronnie Cox and Kirkwood Smith. His part is.
Play the fucking film.
Get the fuck out!
What's the problem? Anyhow. I think there's a Q&A afterward.
Yeah. And
basically, I'll explain the scene to you after you have seen it, because I think somebody wants to start, isn't it?
Yes. Is that a censor speaking? Okay, enjoy the film. Thank you.
To the producer of Spielberg, in fact, Kathleen Kennedy, that they were considering, I would say, they were thinking about choosing me for Star Wars 2. And that was based on the work that I had done on a movie called Soul of Orange, which was seen by Spielberg, and Spielberg called me at that time, in the middle of the night. I think he forgot this 9 hours of time difference. And so it was 3 o'clock when he called, and they said, oh, you know, I saw the Soldier Force, it's absolutely great, and what are you doing in Holland? It's too small. Come to the United States immediately, I'll make sure that I introduce you to the studios, and you should work here, and this and that. And that basically was why they were considering me, using me for Star Wars 2. And then I came to the United States, and I brought with me the film Spatter. And you might not have seen that, but it is probably pretty explicit sex. and a male rape, in fact, by a gang rape, and some other stuff. And I brought that with me, being proud of the movie, which was completely different than Soldier of Orange. And of course they were immediately, Spielberg and his friends were saying, oh, we want to see it and this and that. So I gave him the movie, and that was the last word I ever heard. That was the end. I mean,
one of the best things in Robocop is, I think, Nancy Allen, even if she's not very glamorous, and I've read that you had her gain weight. She was not heavy enough or so. Is it difficult to get an actress to gain weight?
She was also filled in a little bit by us. But I not only did I ask her to gain weight, I also asked or commanded or begged that she had to cut her hair. She had a very blonde, beautiful hair, Nancy Allen. And I felt that there had, in Robocop, I thought what I should not do is pretending or suggesting or bring the audience on to the idea that there could be a sexual relationship between these two people. Because I thought that, of course, she didn't have that thing, you know. And so that would not be possible. That I thought that the audience should never think about that. So I wanted not her to be unattractive, but I wanted to make her nearly neutral. And so that's why I cut her hair, so this would be a bit more male-like. And ask her to be less glamorous and be a bit fat. And of course, I mean, Nancy and I like each other very much, so basically she did it for me.
Robocop, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the only film of yours to get Academy Award. It's absurd, but I think it's the only one. Do awards like that mean anything to you?
No. Honestly, when I was invited for Turkish Delight, that was nominated for an Oscar, I felt that basically these Oscars, I didn't even know what the Oscars were at that time, and it was certainly not planning to leave Holland to get something that I didn't know about. So I declined the invitation, which is in retrospect completely stupid, you know, because even if you don't win it, it was won that year by François Truffaut for La Nuit Américaine. And but even if you don't win, it really helps your career. So that it took a couple of years later. It's only after Soldier of Orange and The Fourth Man that they really wanted me to come over. Yeah.
Robocop got 2 sequels, TV series and animated TV series. Have you watched any of those, and do you have anything good or anything to say about them?
I tried to, with Ed Newmeyer, to write and construct the second one, isn't it? And the idea was basically that Robocop would fall in love with an image in his head, basically, of somebody that died, but that was reconstructed, had lost all limbs and everything, but the brain was still there. So there was a woman who the brain was connected to all kinds of stuff, and basically, and he falls in love with that woman, which is nothing than a brain. And that would be the story. So in fact, when he would be walking on the street, he would be walking in his head with because he had connection with the brain of the girl, so he would be talking to her, but he would be alone. But in his vision, in his Robo vision, like we use that all the time here, you would see her. I mean, that was the studio never went for that.
What about the remake, which is being made?
Well, yeah, I thought that they really didn't understand what we did the first time. No, they didn't understand the irony, they didn't understand the commercials, everything that's interwoven, the news. I think they did it, they brought it in, but without any conviction, and I think it's pretty, the second one is a bit lame, I felt, yeah. And in fact, they asked me if I want to do it, but I felt that the script was, that I could not do better, you know. I felt that fortunately, I feel that I have been able to avoid any sequel. There were sequels, of course, even there were sequels prepared for Total Recall. That was the Minority Report, in fact. That became the Minority Report. That we had the rights to that, and we worked on the script, but somehow it didn't work, and we didn't get it, and the company went bankrupt, and so it went to Spielberg later. So, but I'm glad that I did not do any sequels. I feel that if you have done it once, the second time, it will be very difficult to be motivated. I think every movie should be audacious in a way that you don't know where you're going. And you should be willing to accept the unclarity of your fortune. And then, as I said in the beginning, before the movie, that's a moment when you are more creative. So I think it's good not to do sequels. I think it's terrible to do sequels.
I think it's time for some audience questions finally. So, anybody please.
Over here.
Gentleman over there.
How important was it to choose the actor's lower half of the face for Robocop role?
Yeah, well, I read something about that, I suppose. And it's true. And of course, the Robocop is after 30 minutes, basically the only thing you see for a long time is only this. And we were really looking, and I mean, it's terrible to say this, but we were looking for an actor, yes, but we were also looking for Jaws. I mean, that this would have some style and some strength, and that it would be not be a weak chin. It had to be a strong chin that is pronounced. And so, even if there was a good actor that could have done it, then if the jaws were not good, we didn't do it. So finally we found Peter Weller, and he had a good jaw, and he could act.
Gentleman over there, please.
Could you tell us a little bit about the movement training that Peter Weller went through to get that specific sort of kinetic look?
Well, he was working with a pantomime guy that was basically explaining how he should behave, and he was trying to find out the limitation of his movements would be very important, isn't it? Because a costume like that is difficult to move inside. And so he was using all these things that they use in American football, all these big things that they have. And he was very apt at a certain moment to work with that. And then the costume came, and none of that applied. He couldn't do anything. I mean, it perhaps looks as if he's also doing robotic, clearly. But it was also because nothing could be done, you know. It's not that he could do anything like that, it would be like this, but it was nearly forced by the costume, and he was in despair. When the costume came, and he started makeup at 4 o'clock in the morning, the first day, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was still not basically on. So there was 12 hours of getting him in the costume, and we got in a big fight, and even to the degree that the producer decided to fire Peter. Because he was basically, he was so in despair that he couldn't do anything anymore, you know, and that we would then, of course, we didn't know what to do anything, or either what to do, and this went up, and you know how this goes with productions, then everybody gets angry, and the worst thing I said, and whatever, and finally, basically, I had my conversation with Peter and said, Peter, you have exactly to do what I say. And if you don't do that, you cannot do the part anymore. And I say, if you shake my hand and say, yes, I'll do what you say, and I believe that you are right, then we continue. And then he stretched out his hand and gave my hand, and from there on, he was fantastic. I mean, Peter went to all the horror of that costume. You have no idea how pleasant it is, especially in Dallas, where it was very, very hot. In this costume, you're really in a very awkward situation, and it's nearly impossible to believe that somebody can still act, you know. So he did a great job, and perhaps this crisis was necessary to put everything in line and put everybody on the same level, and then we had a very smooth ride with Peter and in general, a great producer, and my scriptwriter at Numai, one of them, was always there to protect me against my lack of cultural knowledge of the United States. So if I made stupid mistakes, then he would come in and say, you know, nobody does that here, you know. So.
So, gentleman with green shirt, please.
Yes, a question about screenplay, about the one-liners. Were they written in the original screenplay? Let's say this one-liner, bitches leave, or can you fly, puppy? Were they written by a new murderer, or were they...
Michael Miner. Yes, they were. They're certainly not my invention in any way. I wouldn't be able to do something like that. Even now, I would not be able to I have not mastered the English language enough to do that. But they were all in the script, like the one-liners of, for example, of Arnold, like when he kills Sharon Stone and says, "Consider this a divorce." That's really not me, you know. I would never say that to anyone.
Gentleman in Florida.
We see in this film this fake news broadcasts, and in Starship Troopers there are very similar things. So are these your invention, or?
Well, in fact, the newsreels were in the script of Robocop from the very beginning. And the screenplay of Robocop is the same screenplay writer did Starship Troopers. So when we started Starship Troopers, we decided at Numai and I to use the same, but then do it in a Leni Riefenstahl way. So it's very much based, a lot of Starship Troopers is based on this Nazi propaganda film, Triumph of the Will. A lot of shots I copied because I wanted to show that these people, our heroes, are also fascists. Then, of course, it was used against me because they considered it as a fascist movie, but and perhaps it was, but that's not so bad.
Is it true, speaking about fascism, is it true that you saw Adolf Hitler as a kid?
As a?
When you were a kid, you saw Hitler?
No, I never saw Hitler. I saw Hitler on the postmarks, on the postcards, the stamps. And I basically grew up with the stamps of Adolf Hitler in front of me. But I met people that knew Adolf Hitler very, very well. Yes, I did, because I made a documentary in the 60s about the National Socialist leader of Holland. His name was Mussert, like whistling in the Norway. And this was the Mussert, and I interviewed a lot of the people that knew this Mussert guy. He was executed after the war in '46, and especially a woman that was, in fact, in love with Adolf Hitler, and she was still in love when I interviewed her in the 60s. So basically, it's interesting a lot. In fact, strange enough, if you have seen Black Book, some of the elements of Black Book are really about the treatment of prisoners after the war, are based on the descriptions of this of the wife of a Nazi leader.
You have the best. Yes.
That's great.
My name is Petro, and I think I speak for everyone here when I say that it's an incredible and distinct pleasure to have you here.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for being such a great audience. I mean, it has been a pleasure to be here in Helsinki for 2 days with the interviews and everything that happened. I'm a really big fan of the Finns. I think you're great.
I wish to apologize for whoever it was that not immediate presentation. You're here. But the rest of us have really enjoyed this.
Okay.
I always thought Robocop is a near perfect movie. When it comes to the actors chosen for the roles, the editing, the direction, everything, the dialogue, the music. And I always wanted to ask you, did you ever feel that way yourself about the movie?
By now, yes. I mean, then of course I didn't look at it that way. I had not done other movies, but I think it's the most artistic movie I think I made in the United States. You know, it was not even the most successful. Basic Instinct was much more successful, clearly, and I think Starship Troopers is also doing a good job. But I think that there are problems there. But in the Robocop, I don't see really the problems. No, I think it's still a very vital movie. And you saw, in fact, it's true that you saw tonight, I checked that, you saw the real director's cut here, which is really violent. And I can tell you, this was never shown in any theater in the world. It was on there was an edition of the Criterion Collection, but that was DVD. But in the theaters, even forgetting about the 9 minutes that were taken out here, but in general there was a version. The version that was playing in Europe and in the United States was really less violent than this. Here, the killing of the executive at the beginning when he falls on this Delta City, you know, that goes on and on. So it's really great.
The lady in white, please.
Thank you. Could you please tell us something about the camera work? There are some pretty ambitious camera work going on, and the way the camera moves sometimes brings to mind the way Robocop moves, the kind of like a machine going on and just never stopping. And the choreography in the sequence where the guys go to negotiate along the big table, that's one ambitious one. So could you please tell us more about that?
Yeah, this was the DP here was Joost Vacano, and you might have seen his camera work also in a very interesting war movie, Das Boot. I'm sure you have seen that. Wolfgang Petersen's movie, and Joost used for that a very small Ariflex camera with two, let's say, rotating wheels that rotate very fast, like to balance the camera in horizontal and direct and vertical direction, which are two, they rotate, they make a sound, they make so it's very difficult to record sounds, of course. But everything in the movie, a lot of scenes are really done by Joost with a very small camera with these things, with these centrifugal things nearly. He could hold that camera on his thumbs nearly, because it was so balanced. And you cannot do this with the camera because it refuses to do this because of these rotating wheels. So you can only do this. But what you can do perfectly well is walk like this, like this, and then go like that, and boom, and it will all be stable. And even with a steady cam, that's difficult, you know. And he used that really at the maximum in Das Boot, which is actually fantastic in the movements and stuff. But here we used it a lot, and it was a bit problematic because with the rotating wheels basically make a sound as I just did, and of course then you could not record sound, and the studio was not very happy with that because Americans are very much into direct sound. So that was a battle, but ultimately we won, and we shot it that way. But I think it was, and Joost is like a ballet dancer, you know. I mean, he has a kind of, everything is like this with him, everything. And he used that with the camera. You feel that, you feel a certain elegance of these camera's moves. And I think he retired, unfortunately. But I made many movies with Joost. includes Robocop and Total Recall and Showgirls and Starship Troopers and Hollow-Man. The only one I did not make with him was Basic Instinct. So, yeah, I mean, it's very nice that you say this, because I'm really a big fan of the camera moves of this movie, yeah, sure.
So am I.
Thank you. And I'll tell him. He lives in Munich, so.
The gentleman there in the back.
In this film you work with the special makeup effects artist Rob Bottin, who is kind of famous and now kind of disappeared. Can you tell something about him and your working relationship?
Rob is not so easy, in fact. I mean, he's very much an artist, you know. He's not somebody that basically does what you say. But that's fine, basically, because he's so inventive. And I didn't know him. All these special effect people, also Phil Tippett, who did at Tour 9, for example, and did all the animals in Starship Troopers. All these came from the producer, John Davidson, who knew these people all from his time with Sir Roger Corman. And so I didn't know any of these people. He brought them to me, and I believed that he was capable in making this choice. So he chose Rob Bottin, and he chose Phil Tippett, and presented them to me. And basically, I thought I didn't know anything anyhow, so I thought, well, hopefully it's okay. So, and they were great. And with Rob Bottin, one of the problem with Rob Bottin is we had somebody else first, and then basically he couldn't do it, and then Rob Bottin was asked to do it, and then John Davidson said, you know, everything will be too late. Everything will be too late. Everything he delivers will be too late. And that's what it was. So the point was that when we started shooting, the costume was not ready. Now the costume was not ready because I thought that I knew better how to construct that costume, and I was wrong. So that was a delay of a month, I think. And after that, basically, the costume came 2 weeks after we started shooting. And so Peter Weller had not the opportunity, basically, to work in the costume and check it out for himself, you know. It came to the set in the evening, at 4 o'clock, as I told you, in the morning, he had to put it on, and it didn't work. And basically, the crisis with Peter and with the whole crew came because of that, but ultimately the mistake was made by me and the scriptwriter when we disapproved with the costume in the first place and thought we knew better, and that was wrong. So that, I mean, these things happen, you know. You think, oh no, it should be this, and then they do it and it's not good, and then they have to go back and they lose 3 weeks. So that was a big, let's say, it was really a problem, yeah. But for the rest, then it went fine. So. But he did also a lot of stuff in Total Recall, Rob Bottin. And I don't know what happened to him. I think he's still working, but I think he's disappointed. He wants to direct movies himself, and then he doesn't succeed in doing so. I think he's a little bit, sad.
The gentleman in front, please.
By the way, Ed Neumeyer, who wrote Starship Troopers and Robocop, directed and wrote
Number 3.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
Well, they had very little money. And, I mean, just to give a comparison, Starship Troopers, the budget of Starship Troopers was 100 million. 50 million for special effects, I think. And they had 10. For 2 they had 7 or 8, and for part 3 they had about $10 million. And they shot it in South Africa, and it was all very difficult. And you cannot shoot it for $10 million, you know. You can shoot it, but then in a certain way, and that is not good enough for this kind of movie. So, on the other hand, basically, it was supposed to be made for video and for DVD without, they didn't want to make it for the cinema, you know. So, they felt that 10 million was enough, and they made some money with it, yeah. But I think, Probably they shouldn't have done it. No, I mean that because they're both friends of mine, Phil Tippett and Newmeyer, and I think they should have said from the beginning, you know, if I don't have at least $30–40 million, I'm not going to do it. It's a pity that you have to talk about money all the time, especially with all filmmaking, but sometimes it's really better not to do something than not to do it in the right way. And I have really often in my life have abandoned project because I felt I could not do it in the right way.
The gentleman far left, please.
In Robocop, the on-screen chemistry between Lewis and Murphy is great. Did that happen naturally, or could you tell us something about that?
It's acting. I didn't notice anything between them, no.
One final question by the gentleman there in the middle.
Yeah, to me one of the most powerful things about Robocop is how it portrays. So I was wondering, how much was that a product of, or let's say a fortunate byproduct of not having so much to spend on the production design, or was that something that struck you about America in general from Europe?
No, that was really limitations of the budget. And I told you already before that I had grandiose ideas about how it should look, and nothing of that was done. On top of that, of course, the movie is situated in Detroit, but it was shot in Dallas and Pittsburgh. So there's not one shot. The first shot is real. It's taken from some documentary when the camera, first shot, when the camera goes towards Detroit. That came from some documentary. They bought that shot and they put it in because they felt at least one shot about Detroit. But for the rest, it's all done differently. And it was really, we were forced basically by the budget to take it, to choose from what was there. We had to shoot it in Dallas because of the unions and the situation, which was cheaper, and the skyscrapers were better and whatever, so it was also the look a little bit, but we could not change anything. We had to use it as it was, you know, and in retrospect, that was, let's say, that was good. Yeah, but at the moment, of course, when you do it, and you think, you know, it's very, I mean, yes, this is a police precinct, but it's really not a police precinct in any way, but it looks a bit like it, and let's do it there, you know. And so the whole movie was made that way, but somehow that also made it possible to make to find these, let's say, nearly idiotic locations, like the one basically in the steel factory, you know, that's in Pittsburgh. And then you suddenly, we came there, and this was an abandoned steel factory, and it was basically, there was nobody there, and it was so fantastic that we changed all kinds of scenes. I was at Newmeyer there, and we started to change the whole script there because the location was so, let's say, breathtaking. There's this wonderful shot with nearly the walls of Troy or something like that, and that's when Robocop walks over the water, the Jesus thing. And when he says basically, I'm not going to rescue anymore, I'm going to shoot you, you know, the American Jesus. But we were so open-minded to work with what was there that we were also able to change our ideas and our script according to what we saw. And that's what we did.
Mr. Verhoeven, on behalf of the Finnish nation and Night Festival, I want to thank you for all the films and for coming over, and I hope you enjoyed your stay.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.